I might get things started then, if that's okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's panel discussion. Oh, one more. Hi. Welcome to tonight's panel discussion on the fine art of traditional trades, held here at the Victorian Heritage Registered Property Como House in Naarm, Melbourne, Victoria. Tonight's event has been co-coordinated by the Heritage Council of Victoria and the National Trust of Victoria as part of Melbourne Design Week, which is running until the 2nd of June. On behalf of the Heritage Council and National Trust, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we are meeting on tonight, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. We honour elders past and present whose knowledge and wisdom has ensured the continuation of Aboriginal culture and traditional practices, and acknowledge the significance of Aboriginal cultural heritage here in Victoria. My name is Ruth Redden, and I'll be moderating tonight's panel in my capacity as an alternate member of the Heritage Council of Victoria. In addition to the work I do with the Heritage Council, I'm a principal architect and heritage consultant at NBRS Architects and a current International Specialised Skills Institute Fellow. Contributing to tonight's discussion, we have three experts in the area of traditional trades. First, on my right here, we've got Glenn Rundell. Glenn is a Windsor chairmaker from the Central Highlands. He is the co-founder of the Lost Trades Fair, which celebrates and supports master trades and craftspeople and their amazing skills since 2014. Glenn is a fellow of both the Artisans Guild of Australia and the International Specialised Skills Institute, and is the patron of Ballarat's Centre for Rare Arts and Forgotten Trades. Next to Glenn, we have Samantha Westbrook. Sam is the Executive Manager of Conservation and Advocacy at the National Trust. Samantha is a registered architect with over 25 years' experience of working in the heritage industry, with involvement in all aspects of professional heritage architectural services, including work in state and local government as well as private practice. And on the end here, we've got Rebecca Roberts. Rebecca is a doctoral candidate at the University of Melbourne. Rebecca's research examines the role of tacit skills and embodied knowledge in maintaining enduring, adaptable and resilient cultural identities through the conservation of historic built environments. So I'll be asking our panellists some questions now, and we'll perhaps save questions for the end of the night. So please hold your questions until then. And maybe we'll get the panel started by maybe just kind of setting the scene a little bit and talking about what is a traditional trade. And maybe, Sam, you could start us off.
So, my understanding of a traditional trade is one that's needed to repair our heritage building stock. So, in the heritage practice and conservation practice, we need to, when we're repairing buildings, we need to match like for like. So we need our traditional tradespeople or tradespeople to understand what the traditional methods are for those repair works. So they're all the trades that we need to understand the original methodologies for which those buildings were constructed. So that's a whole gamut of trades that we're talking about, and including up to the mid-century. So it's all the trades that we require to conserve our heritage buildings.
Rebecca, do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Thank you, Ruth. So we're talking about carpenters, joiners, stained glass artists, solid plasterers, stonemasons, those sorts of trades that they've learnt the traditional methods and that, as Sam's explained, that are required for these repair works, but they have a depth of knowledge about the materials as well as the techniques that are involved and the need to use traditional materials in the repairs that they undertake.
Yeah. Glenn, maybe you could help us with some examples of how traditional trades are.
Yeah, I guess if we were to use a carpenter, for example, on a house like Como, there would be no pressed metal hanging brackets contained within the timber structure of this building. There would be mortise and tenon joinery. There would be perhaps some dovetail joinery in the sills to the studs. It's skills-based joinery techniques that go back millennia, really. In a traditional sense. The same exists with stonemasonry. for which I'll preface it by saying I'm by no means a stonemason or expert in the field, but I understand a few of the principles based in stonemasonry, and they go back again millennia. You know, if you're ever fortunate enough to see Hadrian's Wall and to see the stonemasonry techniques just in that example of ancient stonemasonry, that a lot of those techniques employed back 1,000 years ago are still employed to this day.
And I guess that an important point as well is perhaps that contemporary technologies are sometimes used and adapted to support the traditional trades as well. And how have you all become involved in the traditional trades area? Maybe Rebecca?
Yeah, well, I never planned this career pathway, but sort of looking back, it started from a young age when my dad built a boat from when I was around 1 year old to when I was 7. I spent a lot of weekends beside him in the warehouse where he was building that. I had a mum. My parents were both very hands-on and encouraged myself and my brothers to be likewise very hands-on, and they didn't hold back in having us involved in any of the activities around house renovations or boat maintenance, and I learnt to sail as well. And so when it came to choosing a pathway, I went to university and did a fine arts combined degree, and then after that I happened upon some stonemasons working in Sydney where I was living at the time, and I just had a quite literal light bulb moment, and it was quite a visceral response where I knew that I saw the stones, and the thought that came to mind was, I know how to do that, I just need to learn how, and it's been an absolutely fulfilling career that I have no regrets about. Of course. Sam?
So yes, I'm a conservation architect. So basically working on heritage buildings and seeing the need to use these traditional methods to repair them and to make them sustainable into the future, and also working with traditional tradespeople and seeing their passion and their ability to just understand the materials and the buildings. It's just such a joy. And so really it's just seeing that need that our heritage buildings need these traditional trades. And I really want to do something about that.
So seeking out those people.
Yes. Make sure that we've got them.
Again.
Happy.
I came into traditional trades, I guess, the traditional way. I was a master and apprentice plumber. How did I come to be that? I've actually been asked that question so many times that I actually had to think about it and give it a great deal of thought. And it stems back from a hereditary thing, I think, from my father's and my mother's, both their sides of the family. My mother was born in England, in post-war England. And her grandfather was a coffin builder and handyman. His father was a bridge builder. And on my father's side of the family, my grandfather was a carpenter, master and apprentice trade, skipped a generation with my dad. But if you go back in the Rundle family, back to England, not coincidentally, and across to France, again, there is that history of timber trades, rights, as they were known. And again, growing up with my parents, my dad never wasted anything. He was the son or the product of a man who had lived through the First and Second World War and the Great Depression. So nothing was wasted. Everything was built at home, and you turned your hand to everything. And so, I started it just before my 16th birthday and became a master plumber and gas fitter.
Wonderful. And how important are traditional trades in the upkeep of heritage properties and places, do you think? And do you feel like traditional trades are still relevant here in Australia?
Oh, that's a given. We were lucky enough just to have a quick look through the house here this evening, and Elise was described one of the walls, and she said, until quite recently, she said there was water cascading down the interior of this building. And that's a considerable problem when you've got, buildings of this age and older that are hemorrhaging, whether it's from the foundations up or whether it's from the roof structure down. You cannot allow those buildings to be in that state of disrepair for too long. Otherwise, it's a domino effect, as we all probably are blissfully aware. And, you know, I've always said, from my knowledge of traditional trades, and I guess segueing for a second, I did my trade in the mid-'80s, which doesn't seem that long ago, although I know it is a while back now. And the trade skills that are taught in our TAFEs and tertiary institutions today for a plumber gas fitter are worlds apart from what I learnt. There is a minimal hands-on approach when it comes to using raw materials. So any roof penetration through either a tiled iron or slate roof, you will beat what they call beat up a hand-beaten lead collar, and it was beat up, raised like a tinsmith or like a silversmith would raise a teapot or a vessel from a flat piece of lead to rise it up to, you know, about 4 to 6 inches above the height of the roof at whatever angle the pitch of the roof was at, and then you would cut the top of it out and fit that pipe. Well, now you use a plastic rubber deck tight that just squeezes over the top. Now you can't do that on a building like this. It doesn't lend itself to the heritage values of the building, and we're in a position now where it won't be long before the next generation of tradespeople who are coming through the tertiary institutions that we have fail to understand how to do it entirely. And we are getting perilously close to that last generation of tradespeople who possess those skills, being able to pass them down to the next generation. So absolutely, it's imperative that we retain the skills.
So Sam, why, as an architect, if you're specifying works to a heritage building, why couldn't you just specify someone who's not trained in the traditional trades to fix the plaster repair works? You know, maybe Glenn had mentioned.
So with traditional trades, you need that understanding of materials, and we're not getting that from the tradespeople that are coming out of trade school these days. We're not focusing enough on existing buildings in our schools, in education for engineers, for architects, for anybody. We've got this throwaway society that it's all about replacement, and unless you've been trained in traditional skills and you have those conservation principles, you're not going to know that using a mortar that's cement rich is going to actually do more damage to your building than using a lime mortar. So it's critical that we have this understanding and knowledge of the traditional materials and trades. So it's as relevant as ever. Going back to your question, it's always been relevant and it's still relevant if we want to retain our heritage buildings, because we can't keep on using the wrong methods on them, or the methods that... one of the big things is tradespeople, a carpenter will come in, or not a carpenter, but window replacement. Like, there's nobody, you get a joiner or a window company to come and look at your windows, and they just immediately look at any problems and they go, well, it needs replacing. And that is such a problem, because in many cases it's just a minor repair that is required to that window. And in this climate resilience and use of materials and all those sorts of things, and so relevant, more relevant now than it has been.
Yeah. How do you feel about?
Yeah, I think that something that really interests me about being a traditional tradesperson, but also my research at the moment, is understanding the custodial relations that tradespeople have with these built places over time, over the course of their career. They're often returning to the same buildings, and they're observing what's happening, and they're seeing over time what happens with cementitious mortars or with a repair that wasn't done with correct techniques or materials, and they really do care very deeply. That's what I think sets apart the sort of, we're talking about the fine art of traditional trades, sets apart traditional trades from mainstream trades, is that custodial relation and that really genuine care for place, and that extends nowadays into wanting our places to be sustainable as well, and being resourceful and being conservative in the way that we conserve our buildings and only replacing as much as necessary. So it's, there's a lot to being a traditional tradesperson. It's the hand, the head, the heart. It really is. It's not a romantic notion. It really is that depth of involvement that people take on when they take on a traditional trade.
And sorry, I've just got a great example of one of those passionate traditional tradespeople that I encountered last week at the Geelong Heritage Awards, and he was getting an award for his traditional trades and his contribution to the industry. He's a tuck pointer, and he got up and he was so emotional, and he was nearly crying when he was talking about what was happening to buildings that he wasn't working on. And yeah, he was nearly on the verge of tears because he loves the buildings. He just wants the buildings to be healthy.
Yeah. Don't know if anyone saw the episode of Restoration Australia this week on ABC, and how it was this amazing opportunity for the traditional tradespeople to work on a Edwardian era mansion in Brisbane, and the passion from the traditional tradespeople that came through, and the, like you said, Rebecca, the heart and soul that they poured into the work that they were doing was really moving to see.
Yeah. Well, the buildings give that back to you as well. I really believe that. I think, it's a symbiotic relationship. You get back what you put in.
And you touched on this a little bit already, Glenn, but how hard do we feel like it is to find traditional tradespeople today to work on our projects, and do we have enough projects to keep the tradespeople going?
Yeah, I think we do. I don't doubt that the work is there, and there's certainly enough people, I think, in the community who are understanding the benefit of having something built well, if we're talking about construction in the first place. So I think there's enough to sustain traditional trades. I don't see an issue with there being a lack of work, particularly in the current industry as well, in the current state of affairs with housing. I know for a fact that you've probably heard in the news at the moment, the entire apprenticeship scheme Australia-wide is being overhauled. And the mainstay of that overhauling of that apprenticeship scheme Australia-wide is largely to do with the construction industry and the shortages in skills and skilled apprentices. I think there's absolutely enough justification there. Yeah.
And Sam, are we finding it hard to find traditional tradespeople?
I think we are, but I think they're there. I mean, I know they're there, and I know that they want to learn, but they're not being provided the opportunity, or they're not finding their place, or not being valued. So they're not coming out of, no pun intended, the woodwork. Yes, I think they are there, and I think we've got a younger generation that's really excited about getting into this, and it's just providing the avenues for them to actually thrive. So I think we can do it. They are there. Yeah.
And Rebecca, in your research, what did those avenues look like to get people into the traditional trades and sustain that?
Yeah, well, interestingly, I've found a large number of people actually fall into traditional trades quite accidentally. They don't intend to, like myself. And so I think we really need to be focusing on our younger people, and we tend to wrap our youngsters in cotton wool these days, and I think we really do need to be expanding out, involving our children in this ethic of care and repair and maintenance. I'm thinking back to my childhood. Every summer we were sanding back and revarnishing the boats that we sailed, and repairing clothes, and whether we like Glenn mentioned, we live in this sort of throwaway society now, and it really is going to be quite detrimental. And we've got so many young people who want to change, want to shift that narrative and want to be part of the change. And there's some really exciting things happening in the sustainable space, in this, building salvaging materials. And so thinking beyond, the definition of heritage, I think it's a quite exciting time to be getting involved in these types of trades.
And I feel like, you see in like the climate action movements that it is the young people that are very passionate about conserving the environment for future generations. And I feel like a lot of that energy also translates over into traditional trades and learning those skills as part of that kind of reuse kind of thing as well.
Yes, definitely. It's that ethic of repair rather than replace that's a really important one that really meets with the traditional trades movement and what we can be doing, and in every aspect of our lives, really. Just everything to the whole consumption attitude that we have, like overconsumption and the replacement. So yes, I think we're on the verge.
And how do we think we could create more interest in traditional trades, or create more exposure for the traditional trades kind of professions, Glenn?
Well, I think you've got to go back to the start. You've got to go back to education. You've got to make opportunities available to our children, and to start explaining these career paths earlier than what we do. Actually, I wanted to sort of reference social media, but I will. I put up a post, a video by Mike Rowe, who you might know of, an American presenter, had a show called Dirty Jobs, and he went into all these horrible jobs, and he generally got into sewers and cleaning out chicken farms and what have you. Fantastic guy, but he's also started the Micro Foundation, and they give millions and millions of dollars to American people who want to get themselves trained up in a skill for a in-demand trade. And it's been a runaway success. And as he explains, rather than just explaining to children or kids or people at that school leaving age that the only option is really for you to follow a university pathway and incur a large HECS debt at the end of it, there are viable opportunities and very meaningful, particularly when we're talking about traditional trades, meaningful vocations in these trades and these skills. My son, for example, of which my wife Lisa and I are immensely proud, will start next year at 17 as a traditional coach builder. He's been offered a job, automotive coach builder. Now, the rarity of that trade I can't describe, but the opportunity it will afford him if he sticks to it, fingers crossed out, if he hangs in there, it could offer him work, meaningful work for the rest of his life anywhere around the world. And those opportunities, if master artisan Bruce Walker explained it really, really well. In fact, if you dig into one of our Lost Trades Fair videos, you'll see him there painting a wheel at one of the early Lost Trades Fairs with a brush which I believe had 3 hairs in it, and he was line painting a wheel. And he said, I want kids to have the same wonderful life and meaningful life and work that I've had my entire life. That's the sort of stuff.
And amongst your son's peers, is that considered cool work?
Oh, probably
So
not
something they're
in the greater scheme of things. If you start mentioning the brands of vehicles he'll be working on, Bugattis, DB2 Aston Martins, Rolls Royces, Bentleys, all these incredible vehicles. It's astounding work, and the fella who's offered him this job is a boat builder or shipwright by profession, and also was a lead light window master as well. So talk about a trifecta of skills. This guy's got it all. And the cars he's building are some of the most astounding vehicles on the road today. It's really incredible, meaningful opportunities. I'll try and keep this really succinct, but I often use the trade of the Cooper as a great example. If you go back 100 years ago today, the Coopers Federation of Australia was the strongest trade union in Australia because they control booze, beer, wine, spirits, the whole lot. And in the space of 100 years, they ceased to exist. They ceased to exist in the 70s. The last union, I think, died out in the 70s, and it was when all those kegs went to stainless steel and aluminium. And yet we have one of the best Scotch whisky, small batch Scotch whisky industries in the world, regularly, winning awards year in, year out. We have a strong craft beer industry, and we have one of the best wine industries in the world. So there is room here for a coopering industry to be revived, for us to revive that curriculum that was a registered curriculum, and to give meaningful opportunity for young people to start a career as a cooper. Well, you can't do that anymore. So why not? Why not start those opportunities? Why not revive these traditional trades? Why not have meaningful tuition, where you can get signed off, where you can be accredited, you can go then to other cooperages around the world and show them your papers and say, well, I'd like to come and turn my hand and work for you as well. And those opportunities should exist. And there's a plethora of them. I mean, think of all the traditional trades you can think of, and some of them, they may not be relevant as they were, but some of them, and coopering is a good example, they are very relevant and very, very worthwhile to keep active and to keep alive in this country.
Mm.
Yeah.
And in your experience, Sam, particularly with the National Trust, how do we drum up more interest in traditional trades?
I think a really important component of this is raising awareness for heritage owners and managers that they need these tradespeople. Because unless they understand that they need the skilled tradespeople to repair and restore their buildings, we're not going to have the demand. So we need to require that our tradespeople have these skills, and raising awareness about good conservation practice, and how to look after your buildings, general maintenance, all those sorts of things, and that you should be asking for when we, as a heritage advisor as well, writing any guidelines on owners undertaking works. You have to make sure that they have the necessary skills to undertake the works. So it's about educating the community about why we need these skilled tradespeople. And if there's the requirement there and the owners are asking for it, there's going to be so many jobs. We're going to be so busy. So it's just raising awareness about the joy of heritage and why you should be using the traditional methods to look after your buildings.
Yeah, I feel like so many people acknowledge that they enjoy heritage places and they're really proud of their heritage homes or places that they're custodians of, but don't realise the traditional trade aspect of needing to maintain a heritage property. Yeah. How about you, Rebecca? What do you think we should be doing more of to drum up interest in traditional trades?
I think Sam's right. More awareness of what a career as a traditional tradesperson is really needed, but we can't do it on our own, and it needs a collaborative, I believe, nationwide approach from all levels, from government, education, but particularly our professional architects and engineers in the industry really need to be advocating for the traditional tradespeople that we have, because I try to be a glass half full person, and I really don't like the rhetoric around dying trades that often gets peddled. And I think we really need to celebrate the extraordinary, highly skilled traditional tradespeople that we do have. We do have them. We need to be prioritising using those people and not just racing to the cheapest, lowest price and compromising and undervaluing those people. I think we really need to be promoting traditional trades as a really valuable pathway for young people that, like Glenn said, not just pushing young people into university all the time, because it's not necessarily the right fit for everyone. I think in any way that we can advocate for the tradespeople that we have and really help connect them with young apprentices and young people who might be interested in taking up a traditional trade.
Mm. And do any of you have examples that you can share of maybe educational institutions or other similar types of places overseas that are perhaps supporting the traditional trades, the sustainability of traditional trades?
Yes, I've got one in Australia, in South Australia. They've got a TAFE program I was looking at recently on traditional building methods, traditional trades. So it's a traditional trades course, and And it's wonderful because one of the things that you really need to do is you need core subjects. It's not just learning one particular trade, it's learning a number of trades to understand how the different trades work together, your finishes and your renders, as well as your brickwork and your mortars. You need to understand those, and your carpentry, they all need to work together. So this course in South Australia actually provides that, as well as core subjects on conservation principles. And I think that is a great model to be using.
At what level are those courses?
Sorry?
At what level are those courses?
That's a TAFE course.
TAFE, yeah.
Yep. Well, our equivalent of TAFE in Victoria.
Yeah.
So I was very buoyed by that. I think that's great, and I think that's a great model that we could use, because we can learn a trade, but we need to have that fundamental understanding of the history of building construction and those sorts of things. Overseas, we've got in the UK, we've got the Society for the Protection of Ancient Buildings, SPAB, and they raise awareness and they provide advice, and they do workshops, and they have working bees and on heritage buildings, heritage sites. So they're really just providing a forum for people to get in there and get experience, and I think that's a great way to do that. And the Engine Shed in Scotland, which is partly government funded, so that's a similar program of workshops, education, panels and seminars and things like that. So just promoting and talking about the processes and utilising all these wonderful tradespeople that we have out there.
And those courses are available to Australian people as well, aren't they? Like SPAB, I know that a lot of Australian people have gone over to SPAB to do some of those courses.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think where those courses, where those programs really succeed is where, like the Cathedral Workshop Fellowship in the UK, which Australians can't participate in that one, but that's it's where there's the multidisciplinary approach, and it's that tradespeople alongside the architects, engineers and academics learning together and learning on the tools, learning in the classroom in a traditional theoretical manner, and travelling around and seeing different sites and meeting different tradespeople and learning different approaches, because that collaborative approach is really what we're lacking in Australia. There's lots of isolated programs happening in different states, but there's not a lot of cross-pollination between us, and we really need all the help we can get to get that sort of network happening and happening really meaningfully.
There's a great one in England, in West Sussex, the West Dean College. That's a fantastic institution that offers traditional trades skills in a multitude of different disciplines and mediums. So when I visited quite a few years ago, there was a young woman from the Library of New South Wales, and she was doing her master's degree in paper conservation, and she would return eventually to the Library of New South Wales and be the most well-respected and authority on paper conservation in that whole institution. So that was incredible, and you could do what we would classify as Cert 2, Cert 3, Cert 4, all the way up to a master's, and they were auspiced by the local universities. And I thought that was a fantastic model, and it had been in existence when I visited for 50 years, so near enough to 53 years it's been operating and going strong. Really, really great model, and a great ethos there about the whole, which I won't get into, it's very long-winded, but about the whole method of tertiary training there and inclusiveness and cross-pollination, like you mentioned, where part of that is communal dining every day, no matter whether you do a half-day course or a full-on master's for a couple of years. You sit in the great dining hall, and any one day you could be sitting next to the person that you're sharing the course with, or you could be sitting next to the dean of the whole university or the whole college, or you could be sitting next to a person from across the other side of the world who was studying something completely different. And it was just a hotbed of conversation, and really was one of the most fantastic facilities of that kind I've ever visited. Yeah.
And of course, we've got the Longford Academy here in Australia, which is right in Tasmania, which is one of the few opportunities that we have as Australians to get on the tools for a number of days or weeks, and mix with different professions, whether you're an architect or a tradesperson, or
And then quickly, before I forget, not to forget, we do have the new Centre for Rare Arts and Forgotten Trades in Ballarat, which is in its infancy, but that is another great facility which is only going to get better with with support and into the future.
And also, I'd like to give a big plug to the National Trust, because we've in the last few years set up the Como approach. You can Google that. But it's all about sustaining traditional trades and opening up opportunities for tradespeople and people who want to get into traditional trades to come and work at our buildings, undertake workshops. And we had our inaugural Traditional Trades Expo last year at Labassa, where we had a number of traditional tradespeople demonstrating their skills and also talking to each other, which was it's just a joy to that collaborative talking to each other in between panel sessions. And we've got that happening in November this year. So that's what the National Trust is trying to do. We're using our properties, which need all of this work, to provide that forum for people to come together and learn about trades.
And again, another opportunity to get hands-on experience and get into those workshops and touch the tools. And, really see what makes a window.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, and a chance to work alongside some of our really valuable traditional tradespeople, and who are so generous with their knowledge always, and you can learn directly from them.
Yeah, great opportunity. Rebecca, can you name any landmark buildings here or overseas that have required the expertise of someone with traditional trades, and why?
Absolutely. Look, we've got a number of sort of really outstanding projects in the last years across Australia. I can think of Sydney Town Hall, Brisbane Town Hall, St George's Church in Battery Point in Hobart. At the moment, St James Church Brighton, if people might remember, was ravaged by fire some years ago and absolutely devastated. And what's happening there is just remarkable. It, I don't think it's an overstatement to say that it's our own little version of Notre Dame Cathedral here, because it really is, again, taking that collaborative approach of a really hands-on architect working alongside really skilled craftspeople, and using all of the best of their skills to rebuild that church authentically. And
what kind of tradespeople would they have?
So solid plasterers, stonemasons, roof plumbers, stained glass artists, carpenter joiners, everything.
And are a lot of those tradespeople coming from Victoria, or are they having to be sourced?
No, they're locally homegrown. The roof plumbers are a local family who led by an extremely skilled roof plumber with extraordinary experience across Australia, and he's teaching his family his skills and handing those down. Thank heavens. We've all got to be very grateful for him. But as far as I know, they're all locally grown.
Yeah,
by and large.
And I love that Rebecca mentioned roof plumbing, because we all think that that's not really a traditional trade, but it is. And it's so necessary that we use the methodologies for our roofs, because that's where the water comes in.
And so many of the problems are.
If we're using, I mean, it comes up from the bottom as well, but mainly that's where our issues are. And if we don't understand lead work, and we're using incompatible materials with incompatible materials, it's just it's so critical that we have roof plumbers that have training in traditional methods, and there's probably not enough of them out there, but
I worked on a project maybe about 10 years ago where we had to bring someone from Queensland to do the lead work on this building, and they had to set up a caravan on site because they didn't have anywhere to stay here in Victoria, but we just couldn't find anyone here in Victoria. That was 10 years ago to do that work for us. Yeah.
It is very specific work. I mentioned I'm a plumber, but sanitary, gas, all manner of different plumbing. But when you start getting into roofing, it's a very, very specific discipline, and our little old shop that we still have in Kyneton, and I'd never paid any attention to it before we bought the place, but on the very ridge of the front of the shop, there is this hand-turned Fibonacci curve, if you like. It's been hand cut, and it's like what we would call a volute, and it's a double-sided volute, and it was just a decoration, and it was the icing on the cake for the roof plumber. When he'd finished that roof, he put a volute on the front and the back, this beautiful lineal curve, all hand cut, all hand soldered. So when I had to replace a couple of sheets on the front, I made sure I stuck that back where it was, and all that attention to detail, that was really a sign of that tradesperson's skill and ability, that you do not see on roofs anymore. Yeah.
And if we had a wish list of tasks or requirements to ensure traditional trades were supported and flourishing in the future here in Australia, what would this look like? Sam, maybe I'll start with you.
In our education, that's a no-brainer. That we're learning about traditional trades, and that they are in our trade schools. That would be one of the major things. And also we have a population of heritage owners and managers who know what questions to ask. So that would be the ideal, and they're seeking the traditional tradespeople to do the work to their houses. So they would be the main things for me.
Education. Rebecca?
I'll try and keep it brief.
We have time. It's okay.
I think, I've said it a couple of times. The traditional tradespeople we have are predominantly, small to medium-sized enterprises. They're, families with mortgages, and they don't have the resources to be out advocating and recruiting and doing all that hard work that we desperately need. So we need, anyone who's in the industry to be really advocating and championing and celebrating the wins, and when they're posting their projects online, tag the contractors and, really celebrate the fantastic tradespeople that we do have, and collaborating on site, and, when you're on scaffolds alongside them, really including them in the conversation, in the happening of that site, and really, I think I said I'd keep it short, but if we've got time, I will go on. I think universities have a big role to play. I think part of my hope in my position at the moment, doing this doctoral research, is to create pathways for tradespeople to be more involved in that academic learning, because there is a yearning for that, and that's what we see succeed overseas. And so we need to be really nurturing that here, and not having these institutions as exclusive places where tradespeople aren't involved. And I think just really celebrating the glass half full approach, and not so much thinking of these trades as dying, or rare, dying out sort of trades, but really making them, really celebrating them as a valuable pathway for young people to take on. And one more point: if you are involved in procurement or tendering these works, really understanding that the competitive tendering process that ends up in a race to the bottom, and the lowest price, is a compromise that we can't continue to make. We for the sake of our buildings and the valuable materials in them, we need to be working as collaborative teams to sustain those buildings for as long as possible.
And I just might add something about I would love it if we were like Japan and our craftspeople and our traditional tradespeople are like royalty. They're really valued and for their skills and their national treasures themselves because they're continuing those skills. And we have those the same level of craftsmanship in our buildings that we need to be able to value our tradespeople and our craftsmen in the same way, craftspeople in the same way.
Yeah. Okay.
It's probably like Rebecca, it's a long wish list. I'd like to see support from the top down. I'd like to see governments actually getting behind apprenticeship schemes. I'd like to see all the relative peak bodies talking to one another and forming definitive action plans to ensure that we do have opportunities put forward. We do have funding there to ensure that our TAFEs don't get defunded and the traditional aspects of our TAFEs get smaller and smaller. And I've seen it myself in TAFEs. I've seen it in Melbourne Polytechnic. And I'm not trying to be glass half empty, but I am trying to, to suggest that, there could be more done by the governments and not make a political football. It's not about the left or right because all sides of politics have been complicit in this for generations of allowing our traditional tradespeople and tradespeople in general that training to be dumbed down and lessened and defunded. And also on top of that, for the existing tradespeople that we do have, if you're a master carpenter or a master plumber or any other form of traditional tradespeople person, having an ability to perhaps engage in some of the courses that National Trust are offering with the Como project, and having a extra ticket or an extra qualification that you can perhaps go back to TAFE and do that skills-based training and improve your skills or your knowledge base to allow you to then go and work on those heritage buildings. And it's a win-win. That way we ensure that the buildings have the requisite skilled people to work on them and repair them and restore them in the manner in which they should be restored. And you can then, if you're searching for those tradespeople, all you've got to look for, it's like the heart tick, all you've got to look for is that certification. And you know that you're getting a quality tradesperson. And I think that would save us a lot of problems with respect to, the cowboy culture that you see in some trades, where it is all about, people, undercutting each other and trying to do it for the lowest possible price and the lowest possible quality. Yeah.
And sorry, I'd just like to add another point. We can take it even higher than that and just say, if we're valuing our heritage, like if government at all levels is valuing our heritage and it's worth it to spend the time to put the effort into to building up our traditional trades. So it's about valuing our heritage in general, not just our traditional tradespeople, and recognising that we have a really valuable cultural landscape that needs conserving. So we need these people.
And need more events like these where we can celebrate our heritage places like this wonderful building. Thank you. That was wonderful. And I wonder if there are any questions from anyone in the audience tonight. Yeah. Yep. Can you see someone in a red jumper down here?
It's not really a question, just a comment to add to the wish list. Maybe a bit more information, like making information on unions a bit more accessible to people who are already in the lost trades or in the traditional trades, just to get better wages and sort of rally people together. I think that'd be really good.
I think that's a good point to make. I think I was at a heritage event recently where there was a carpenter who pointed out that she gets paid $20 an hour more to go and build a car park as compared to working on a heritage building. So we've really got to shift our thinking around how we value these skills.
We'll just wait for the microphone. Thank you.
You like start last shield. Yes, I'm wondering about the cohort that you're trying to get to. Yes, you have young people, 16, 17-year-olds going into apprenticeships, but I'm aware that there are some TAFE courses where they will have mature age. So you'll have people coming in their 20s, in their 30s. And I'm thinking of a woman whom I met about 30 years ago who'd done a university degree, enjoyed it immensely, but somehow came upon carpentry and it changed her life. And so that's what she pursued. She went in as a mature age entry to carpentry joinery, and it was a whole new existence. So it's that mature age cohort that it might get lost because they don't know that they can make a career change like that.
That's a really good point, and we hope they're not going to get lost, because that's what we're finding with our National Trust workshops, the traditional trades workshops that we're doing, that they're career changes, or there's people who have worked in trades and they want to do something more meaningful and they're changing trades. So we're hoping to capture them. And in a way they're more easy to capture because they're on social media more, these young tradespeople. And the construction industry, it's the people that are in the construction industry now that really are struggling to get that avenue into another area, because all everybody's talking about is the new build, and that's what the trade schools are teaching them. But yes, it's a really good point, and I think there's a lot of passionate, mature age students or people who have had careers who want to do something different, and it's a great pathway. Yeah.
No, I'd agree. I don't think it's a barrier at all, age. This is not my first career being a Windsor chairmaker, as you probably know. I was, quite a good deal older than 30 when I started making chairs, and it's not a barrier at all. No.
We welcome them because they're wise.
Another question? Yep.
Yes. A few weeks ago, I was actually at the Master Builders Apprenticeship of the Year Awards, and in the Marvel Stadium, you couldn't actually get a more different cohort of people, but all apprentices, all very passionate. Is there some opportunity to reach out and perhaps have a section of awards within the apprenticeship scheme for traditional trades?
That's a good question.
I think there needs to be more rates, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. There could be additional modules. There could be additional training. There could be just like you would think with a doctor. You've got a GP and then you've got specialists who go on and do further education, further training. And those people who want to further themselves, they are the exact people that you want to be on those classes. They are the passionate ones. They are the ones who are driven enough to follow that extra training, to undertake that extra training. Absolutely, I think that's a great idea. Yep.
I believe there's a question further down the back.
Oh,
Okay, sorry. Here you go. Hello. Hi.
Hi. It just it does worry me that we talk a lot about heart and passion and people coming from Queensland and living in caravans whilst working on a site. Are projects budgeting adequately for the specialist skills that they're requiring? And are we asking the traditional tradespeople to carry, to trade on passion more than we should be?
That's a brilliant question. And I think the answer is yes, we are. And I don't know what the solution is, to be honest, but and it's a dangerous road to go down on my behalf to say that for me that it really has been about more than just the pay packet. It's why, at the end of, I'm doing a PhD, but I tell you what, at the end of it, I'm probably going to go back to being a stonemason because I love it. But I think you're right. And it's come out in my research as well that people have been wary about speaking too much about their love of the work at risk of, of people taking advantage, and it happens, but I don't know what the answer is.
I think we have to create the demand, and we have to require that we have these skills. And I think, I hate to say it, but legislate people working on heritage buildings that they have to have a certain skill level. And so then they're paid for that skill level. So
It's a nice tack onto the project. It's
it's in the building code that you need to do a certain level of, you need to match like for like and use existing materials and do the testing and use the traditional methods. I think legislation, and it has to come from the top level of government to value and to make sure we're doing the right things for our heritage buildings.
I think as well, though, sorry, Glenn, just to jump in, I think as well we have to be really careful of our the custodians, the owners of these places who genuinely don't have a lot of money. Like if you're thinking about regional areas in particular, we can get quite stuck talking about the cities, but small parishes, dwindling parishes who have these large assets that require a lot of work to even make safe, let alone restore. And so if you have a skilled tradesperson who has that broad depth of knowledge, chances are they're not going to come in and make sweeping changes. They're going to take a modest approach. It's going to be a conservative approach about making the place safe, making it usable, and doing as much as necessary but as little as possible to repair and monitor over time. And when you have those fantastic relationships that I've been part of for almost 25 years, those relationships with the building owners, it's a really respectful relationship, and nobody's taking advantage of the other one. It's just about really prioritising taking care of the building. Sorry, Glenn.
Yeah, we need to have enough traditional tradespeople out there, like grow the corpus. So we're not having traditional tradespeople compete with people who aren't going to use the traditional methods, which are cheaper. We need traditional tradespeople competing with traditional tradespeople, and the ideal is to have so many out there that, it's a competitive industry and we can bring down the price as well. And as Rebecca said, a lot of the times when we're working in traditional trades and you've got a traditional tradesperson who will repair a building rather than replacement, and repairs often more cost effective than replacing anyway. So
just a couple of reflections. Pete Lovell is my name. I've worked in the industry for 45 years, and I've sat with seminars like that 3 years ago or 20 years ago, and they're very important and very good. I think Homestead used to have awards for trades for practices in heritage. They don't anymore. It's long gone. One reflection listening to this is the issue of traditional trades and modern practice. And I think in looking at traditional trades, I would have to say most people I've ever worked with over a long time get paid very well. In fact, better than some of the conventional trades. So I would say it's not done just out of the goodness of someone's heart. They do it with passion for sure, but they get paid appropriately and very well. I think that the one thing I'd reflect on is that for an apprentice, it is about the viability of their life going forward. Are they going to be able to sustain themselves, their families, whatever, doing this or not? And if I look at traditional trades, I think there is an interface with modern practice. I think there needs to be thinking about modernising traditional trades, not in the sense of changing them, but stonemasonry. We get our stone pre-cut on a CNC saw. It's all computerised. There's no stonemason involved at all in dressing a complex moulding or cornicing, or it comes from the place that supplies the stone pre-sawn. Is that wrong? Are we looking at stonemasons to actually hand carve every single mile of cornice that we put back on the building? We get lime plaster now pre-packaged. No one sits there slaking lime on site in the way they traditionally did in pits. It comes from Western Australia and drums. There are modern aspects of traditional trades, and I think that in thinking about people working in traditional trades, there has to be also encouragement to work at the interface between traditional trade and modern trade practice. The stonemason who works in traditional trade almost needs to be a stonemason who can hang sheet stone on a modern building. There is an interface there, and I think to really encourage it and keep going, there needs to be thinking about not isolating this too much, not making it so rarefied that it becomes hard to sustain. So I'd just say that I think the reality is traditional trade has to think about modern trade practice as well and look at that interface.
I think that's brilliant. Yep, and I couldn't agree more. You know, I really couldn't. I see it so often, and my answer or my reflection on your reflection is I often get queried about that. I teach classes in making traditional Windsor chairs. Now, they're unchanged the way they've been done in 200 years, and yet I use a cordless drill to drill the holes. When I was taught in Tennessee, we used a brace and bit, and we're there turning this brace and bit. But it's 2023 or 2024. And, we are still teaching people to drill a hole to an accuracy to within half a degree of accuracy by hand and eye. It's just that there's a battery turning the drill as opposed to your arm. And
It's knowledge that you're passing on as well.
yeah, that's right. It's still a skill set and transferable skill set. And I often argue that, you know, if it's never going to be seen and it's going to allow you to stay in business essentially and to be competitive and to stay afloat, well then that's an appropriate use of current technology. The Shakers were the greatest example of that. You know, the religious sect from North America. They weren't Amish. They were certainly very traditional in a lot of aspects, but they were also the first to embrace technology. They developed the circular saw. They had water-powered planing machines, and they still created some of the finest, arguably some of the most valuable now North American handmade furniture. But they used appropriate technology. So I think it's a very, very, very valid point that we have to move with the times. We can't be Luddites walking around with corncob pipes and ye olde pants and stuff. It's just nonsense. If we want these things to these buildings to exist and these trades to move with us into the century, we have to be able to do it in a timely manner as well. But we still can. Doesn't mean we have to be there with a handsaw cutting every cross-cut joint on a stud with a handsaw. We can use a circular saw. That's okay. It's appropriate where it's appropriate, I think.
Yes, there's absolutely efficiencies we can learn from modern technologies that, that's a really good point. Yep.
Yeah, and I wasn't saying that we don't use those methods. We certainly do aim to be efficient in what we do, but there are just so many projects that don't have those quantities of replacement material that justify the cost of CNCing. So if you're taking the conservative approach, we need the hand skills for somebody who can do really fine indent repairs or a mortar repair or those sorts of things that do require the high degree of skill. So yes, no, not discounting that by any means. I think that's...
I guess the good news in response to your conversation piece, Peter, is that we do have a lot of banker masons. They're alive and well, and we're very proud of the work that they do. But of course, we're having to move towards CNC processing also, and it's a great thing to be able to do so because OH&S is a big driver of that, the safety of our masons. But, and I want to come back to that, but really what we're needing are parents who are directing their young people towards the trades. This is something that we just don't have nearly enough of. And the pinnacle of achievement always seems to be academic. And, our universities are terribly run down places, whereas the trades are rich with tradespeople. Our trades in the construction industry, in the heritage industry, are very alive and well. And the opportunities for mentoring and training young people is just tremendous. But what we also need is stronger connection with academic institutions because the heritage trades are extremely smart. There's a great deal of knowledge that's infused with our skills in the heritage trades, and we're constantly needing to work very closely with heritage architects, with engineers, with geologists, and to be able to create career pathways that teach post-apprenticeship, and as Rebecca referred to, the Cathedral Workshops Fellowship as a wonderful initiative in the UK, where there's an undergraduate program for post-apprentices to really develop those deep insights and connections with the academic disciplines that are so necessary to the conservation of our buildings. So I guess if there's a question to come out of this, it is, do any of the panel know of academic institutions who are prepared to really take the opportunity here to integrate with the trades, and in both directions, not just providing career pathways for young people to progress beyond apprenticeship level, but for academics to spend time with the trades. You only have to read Thomas Hardy to know how important it was, or in fact how standard, commonplace it was in the 18th century, 19th century, for architects to spend time in the trades before progressing on to their academic study. Mm-hmm. And I think we could be taking a leaf out of that book. But yes, do we have any
Rebecca,
insightful academic institutions who are prepared to take this opportunity?
Well, I can just talk about my academic experience. So I studied at Deakin University in Geelong, and we were actually paired with the building students. And I think that is one of the reasons why I am in the conservation area today. We did the same subjects as the builders, and we did projects with the builders. And one of my favourite subjects ever, which I tell lots of people, was called building faults and learning about materials. And I don't know if Deakin still does that, but we had some architects who then went into building and some builders that went into architecture, and I think it was a great combination. So that's the only one I have an example of. But yeah, that I feel like, going back to an earlier question, that's one of the reasons I'm in conservation today, is because of my academic training.
I know. Well, I did my master's through the University of Sydney Architecture faculty, and at that time I was one of 2 stonemasons going through, and I know that a number of other tradespeople had gone through that program, but I don't know if that's happening so much nowadays. But I can't speak on behalf of anyone else.
Do you know of any local? Okay, I'm ready. Unfortunately, we have time for one more question, I think. Yep.
So my question runs alongside the academic subject. I find that within the trade of architects, I guess, there's a lot of ignorance towards traditional trades, and a considerable lack of considerable, I guess, ideological opposition to utilising traditional trades, and particularly in renovation for homes and things like that. Because I work in a lot of homes, mostly adding to renovations and painting and decorating and fixing windows and such. And sash windows is something I do a lot of work on. And I find sash windows have a lot of more structural integrity over 120 years than most windows that are designed today. And I'm just wondering if you guys think that there's a lot of, I guess, flaws in the way the architects are educated, and particularly in their ideology that sort of pushes them for more innovation rather than utilizing, I guess, skills and trades and designs that are already proven themselves over the hundreds of years that the buildings have held up.
I have a lot to say on that, but I'm not an architect. And
Sam is a registered architect.
Yes, I would say, and I might put in a plug for Masters of Urban Cultural Heritage at Melbourne University, which is doing a double degree, offering a double degree of architecture and a Masters of Urban Cultural Heritage. Dashina might be able to explain that more. But and having discussions with the academic board there needs to be more training about existing buildings. Our architects are trained to build new, design new. That's the sexiest thing to do, is to build new and have an empty site, but most of the work that architects do is with existing buildings. So that really needs to be a fundamental part of their training, is to understand existing buildings and know how to work with them and deal with the interface between the old and the new, which is just pretty much what we all do. Like architects, not very often do you get to work with an empty site.
And I think, like you were saying earlier, promoting awareness and knowledge sharing would be really helpful, because a lot of the time architects don't realise that they can specify works for traditional tradespeople, or how to specify those works, and creating opportunities for architects to meet with people who are on the interface of that work. And I know as an architect myself, talking to the people who are doing the works themselves is the best way to write that specification. Being able to have that conversation with the tradespeople.
And my dream is we don't need, and this I'll do myself out of a job, we don't need conservation architects, because architects should have that knowledge as well, because they should understand buildings just as well as anybody else who's studied architecture.
Glenn, you did say you had something to add. We are running out of time. So
yeah, I'll be very brief. Look, I think it's a valid point. You know, if the additions to heritage buildings, for example, I'll use the Kyneton Township, lots of Victorian era, Gold Rush era buildings, and the majority of the extensions that get put on the back of them are a black box with a flat roof and 4 square sides and jet black. Now, if they're not specifying for the inclusion of heritage trades or heritage, even the uses of materials that would allow for a heritage practitioner or a tradesperson, well, that becomes difficult, I think. But again, that's a vast generalisation. You know, I tend to agree. You know, so we are with a lot of these trades. I'm just going to speak really broadly now. We're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You know, we're not cathedral thinkers, and we need to be cathedral thinkers. We need to think about laying the foundation stone for what will happen in 50 years. We're thinking about 1 year down the track, or until the Labor Party get tossed out, or until the Liberal Party get tossed out. And we're not thinking 3 and we are thinking 3 and 5 years down the track, not 10, 50 or 100 years down the track. And that's across the board with our skills, our apprenticeship schemes, our buildings, what we're building, how we're building it, the materials we're using, the longevity of those materials. I drive through areas of low socioeconomic standing, and I see houses that are slums already that have been up for 20 years, and they're not worth rebuilding. They're not worth repairing. They've used blue board that's been rendered, that's literally peeling off. They're using, I won't use the brand name, they're using iron that's with the paint is faded or peeling off. They're using porous concrete tiles. They're sourcing products from halfway around the world, supposedly because they're better than stone or they're better than timber. We need to go back to thinking about locally sourced products. Maybe having an area of 50 to 100 kilometres away that the products are sourced from, and no further. Thinking about that sort of style of building, that sort of material use, cathedral thinking. That is the key, and that's what I think is the future.
Great. Thank you so much for your time tonight and your contributions to the conversation. It was really interesting. I thoroughly enjoyed the talk. And thank you for your questions and participation from everyone in the audience. That concludes tonight's panel. Thank you.
Goodbye.